Hello my friends, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Cat Tales, a Warrior Cats reread podcast. I'm your host, Coffee, and today we'll be reading chapters 12 through 15 of Book 5 in the Warrior Cats arc, A Dangerous Path. Where we last left off, Bluestar essentially has just gone crazy. She's blaming WindClan for stealing prey, even though that is not happening at all whatsoever. She's planning a midnight attack on WindClan, and Fireheart doesn't like that. And he vows to prevent that from happening. So, we'll see what he means by that. Okay, so getting into chapter 12, Fireheart is leaving the ThunderClan camp rather quickly, hoping no one sees him. He is directly disobeying Bluestar by going to see Tallstar and talk with him directly to try to avoid battle. He wants Tallstar and Bluestar to meet so that Bluestar can see that WindClan is not well off and she'll call off the attack. He's nervous about what Bluestar might do to him if she finds out. At the camp entrance, as he leaves, he gazes upon the entrance one more time, watching Brightpaw practice the hunting crouch on a dead leaf. She traps it under her paws as she pounces, and Fireheart praises her. He leaves camp with strengthened resolve, knowing she represents all that ThunderClan cannot lose. So he's very, very convinced that he's doing the right thing, which is, debatable. Quote, "By sun high, Fireheart was approaching the stream that lay on the route to Four Trees. He stopped for a moment to rest. In his confusion and anxiety, he had not taken time to eat before he left the camp, and a rustle in the undergrowth reminded him of how hungry he was. He dropped into the hunter's crouch, only to realize a couple of heartbeats later that the sounds were not made by prey. He caught a glimpse of a familiar dark pelt and breathed in the scent of ThunderClan cats. Puzzled, Fireheart pressed himself to the ground behind a clump of fern. He hadn't ordered a patrol in this direction, so why were his clan cats here now? Then the undergrowth parted, and Darkstripe emerged, mewing sharply over his shoulder. "Follow me. Try to keep up, can't you?" Two small shapes appeared out of the bracken. Fireheart's eyes widened in surprise as he recognized Goldenflower's two kits. Bramblekit bounced into the open, batting at a fallen leaf, while Tawnykit followed more slowly. "I'm tired. My paws ache," the little tabby kit complained. "What, a strong kit like you?" Darkstripe meowed. "Don't be silly. It's not far now." "What isn't far?" Fireheart wondered in alarm. "What are you doing out here, and where are you taking these kits?" He expected to see Goldenflower with them. Surely her kits had never been this far from the nursery before, but she did not appear. Bramblekit scampered over to his sister and gave her a nudge. "Come on, it'll be worth it," he urged. Both kits hurried after Darkstripe to a shallow place where they crossed the stream, squealing in fear and excitement as the water swirled around their paws. On the far side of the stream, Darkstripe veered away from the route that led to Four Trees, and headed instead along a much narrower path that twisted away under the trees. A burst of outrage shook Fireheart. He knew exactly where that path led. Darkstripe was taking the kits toward the border with ShadowClan. So, probably to give them to Tigerstar, maybe? Fireheart had to wait for them to climb the slope beyond the stream before he dared to emerge from the ferns and follow. By the time he caught up, they were approaching the border. The strong reek of ShadowClan reached Fireheart, and he saw the kits stop and start sniffing the air. "Yuck, what's that?" Tawnykit squealed. "Is it a fox?" asked Bramblekit. "No, it's ShadowClan's scent," Darkstripe replied. "Come on, we're nearly there." He led the kits across the border, Tawnykit complaining that she was getting the horrid scent all over her paws. Growing angrier still, Fireheart slid into the shelter of a hawthorn bush just on the ThunderClan side, where he could watch without being seen. Close by, Darkstripe had come to a halt. The kits flopped out on the grass, exhausted, only to spring to their paws again a moment later, when a clump of bracken rustled and another cat stepped into the open. The newcomer was Tigerstar. Fireheart froze, though he was hardly surprised. He had guessed that Darkstripe had been hoping to curry favor with Tigerstar by bringing his kits to see him, but the ShadowClan leader's prompt appearance suggested that this meeting had been arranged all along. Fireheart wondered if Goldenflower knew about this. She was not here with her kits, so perhaps she didn't even know that Darkstripe had taken them away. She might just think they had gone missing. She must be frantic, Fireheart thought. He tensed his muscles, ready to leap out and confront Darkstripe, but he stayed in his hiding place and made himself concentrate on what was happening in front of him. Tigerstar padded forward, the muscles rippling under his dark tabby pelt, and he stood in front of the two kits. For a moment he inspected them, and then bent his head to touch noses, first with Bramblekit and then with Tawnykit. Even though they could never have seen such a massive cat before, both kits stood bravely before him and met his gaze without flinching. "Do you know who I am?" meowed Tigerstar. "Darkstripe said he would take us to meet our father," replied Bramblekit. "Are you our father?" Tawnykit added. "You smell a bit like us." Tigerstar nodded. "I am." The kits exchanged a wondering glance as Darkstripe mewed, "This is Tigerstar, the leader of ShadowClan." Their eyes grew huge, and Bramblekit breathed, "Wow! You're really a clan leader?" When Tigerstar dipped his head in agreement, Tawnykit mewed excitedly, "Why can't we come and live with you and your clan? You must have a really nice den." Tigerstar shook his head.
Your place is with your mother for now, he told them. But that doesn't mean I'm not proud of you. They seem fine, strong kits, he meowed to Darkstripe. When will they be apprenticed? In a moon or so, Darkstripe replied. It's a pity I have an apprentice already, or I can mentor one of them myself. Not the evil nepotism. Fireheart's claws dug into the ground as a jolt of anger shot through him. Bluestar and I decide who the mentors will be, not you, Darkstripe. He almost hissed the words aloud. And you're the last cat we would choose, he added silently. Tigerstar turned his gaze back to his kids. Can you hunt? He asked them. Can you fight? Do you want to be good warriors? Both the kits nodded vigorously. I'm going to be the best warrior in the clan, Brimble boasted. Tawny Kit refused to be outdone. And I'll be the best hunter. Good, good. Tigerstar gave each kid a quick lick on the head. Fireheart couldn't help remembering Graystripe and how his friend had left the clan of his birth so that he could stay with the kits he loved. Was it possible that Tigerstar was suffering just as much at being parted from Bramblekit and Tawny-Kit? There goes that autism empathy again. Then Fireheart's blood ran cold as Bramblekit asked, Please, Tigerstar, why are you the leader of ShadowClan when our mother is a ThunderClan cat? They don't know, Tigerstar asked Darkstripe. The warrior shook his head. Well then, Tigerstar meowed, turning back to the kids. That's a long story. Sit down and I'll tell you. Fireheart realized this was the moment when he had to interrupt. The last thing he wanted was for Tigerstar to tell the kits a biased account of how he came to leave ThunderClan. One thing was certain. Tigerstar would never admit that he had been a murderer and a traitor. Rising to his paws, Fireheart stepped out of the shelter of the hawthorn bush. Good day, Tigerstar, he meowed. You're a long way from your camp. And so are you, Darkstripe. His tone sharpened. What are you doing here with these kits? As he padded up to join them, he had the satisfaction of realizing that both Tigerstar and Darkstripe were dumbfounded by his appearance. For a heartbeat, they both gaped at him while the kits bounced around the grass to meet him. Oh, he got him! This is our father, Tawny Kit announced excitedly. We came all the way from camp to see him. Why did no cat tell us he was the leader of a clan? Bramblekit piped up. Fireheart did not want to answer that question. Instead, he confronted Darkstripe with his eyes narrowed. Well? How did you know we were here? Darkstripe blustered. I saw you crossing the stream. You were making enough racket to wake the whole forest. Fireheart? Tigerstar dipped his head, the courteous greeting of a leader to the deputy of another clan. There was no hostility in his tone. Blame me, not Darkstripe. I wanted to see my kits. You wouldn't deny me that, surely. That's all very well, Fireheart replied in confusion. But Darkstripe shouldn't have taken them without permission. It's dangerous to let kits wander so far away from their camp. Especially with that dog loose in the forest, he added to himself. They're not wandering, they're with me, Darkstripe pointed out. What if a hawk attacked? There's still little cover in some parts of the forest. Have you forgotten Snowkit? One of the kits let out a whimper and Fireheart stopped. He didn't want to frighten them. Take them back to camp, Darkstripe. Now. Darkstripe exchanged a glance with Tigerstar and shrugged. To the kits he meowed. Come on, Fireheart has spoken and we must obey. I imagine this was said with dripping sarcasm. The two kits backed away from their father and followed Darkstripe as he set off back to the camp. Say goodbye to your father before you go, Fireheart meowed, forcing himself to speak in a friendly tone. You'll see him again when you're apprentices and can go to gatherings. Both kits turned to mew goodbye. Goodbye, Tigerstar replied. Work hard, and I shall be proud of you. He and Fireheart stood side by side as Darkstripe led the kits back down the slope and across the stream. When they had disappeared into the undergrowth, Tigerstar meowed. Take care of those kits, Fireheart. I'll be keeping an eye on them. Fireheart's heart was pounding. When he had exposed the former deputy's treachery, Tigerstar had threatened to kill him. Now they were alone once more, with no help nearby for Fireheart if the ShadowClan leader attacked. Fireheart's muscles tensed, but Tigerstar made no move toward him. I'll see they're looked after, Fireheart meowed at last. I'm sure they will be loyal to their clan. ThunderClan takes care of all of its kits. Really? Tigerstar narrowed his amber eyes. I'm glad to hear it. Tigerstar knew about the two kits who had been taken to Greypool, Fireheart remembered with a jolt. He waited for the ShadowClan leader to challenge him about them. But Tigerstar did not question him, though his knowing expression chilled Fireheart. It was as though he were well aware that Fireheart could tell him more. Instead, Tigerstar dipped his head again and mewed. We shall meet at the next gathering. I must return to my clan now. Then he turned and padded away. Fireheart made sure the ShadowClan leader had really gone before he turned away too, following the border toward Fortrees. Much as he hated to admit it, he couldn't see that Darkstripe had done any real harm by taking the kits out of the nursery. Fireheart would have had to tell them eventually that their father was the leader of ShadowClan. And Tigerstar himself had behaved with more restraint than Fireheart would have believed possible. Firmly, he put the episode out of his mind. Time was running out. Before sunset, Fireheart knew he must speak with Tallstar and find another way to solve the dispute over the stolen prey. And that's the end of chapter 12. So, that's interesting. That was almost really, really bad, because Tigerstar would 1000% lie about, what actually happened in ThunderClan to his young children, which is insane. Alright, Chapter 13. Fireheart runs across WindClan territory. It's sun high now, and he's keenly aware of how little time he has before Bluestar's attack. He stays low, looking for a patrol with friendly cats he knows so he can reduce his risk of being attacked. He crosses a shallow stream when strong WindClan scent floods over him, along with the scent of rabbit. He ignores his growling stomach and dives into a clump of bracken by the stream, peering out carefully. Quote, 3 cats were making their way upstream toward him. At the front of the patrol was his old friend One Whisker, and Fireheart's heart lifted. Gorsepaw was with his mentor. They were both carrying rabbits. But to Fireheart's dismay, the third cat was Mudclaw, the dark-mottled warrior who had stopped Bluestar when she tried to cross WindClan territory to get to Highstones. This cat would never allow Fireheart to bring his message to Tallstar. But it seemed that luck, or the favor of StarClan, was on Fireheart's side. With their jaws full of prey, the WindClan cats were unable to pick up his ThunderClan scent, and they passed within a couple of tail lengths of him. Then Gorsepaw, who was struggling with a rabbit almost as big as he was, stopped to adjust his grip on it and fell behind the others. Fireheart spotted his chance. Gorsepaw! The young cat raised his head, ears pricked. Over here, in the bracken! Gorsepaw turned, and his eyes stretched wide when he saw Fireheart poking his head out from the rusty fronds. His mouth opened, but Fireheart urgently signaled him to keep silent. Listen, Gorsepaw, he mewed. I want you to tell One Whisker I'm here, but don't let Mudclaw know, okay? The apprentice hesitated, looking troubled, and Fireheart added urgently. I have to talk to him. It's important for both of our clans. You've got to trust me. The desperation in his tone reached Gorsepaw, who paused a moment later and then gave a quick nod. All right, Fireheart, wait here. He picked up his rabbit again and hurried to catch up to the 2 warriors. Fireheart crept deeper into the bracken and crouched there, waiting. Before long, he heard another cat approach his hiding place and murmur, Fireheart, is that you? To his relief, Fireheart recognized One Whisker's voice. He peered warily out of the shelter of the bracken and straightened up when he saw that his friend was alone. Thanks, StarClan, he exclaimed. I thought you weren't coming. This had better be good, Fireheart, One Whisker meowed. He gave Fireheart a hard stare, with no trace of his usual friendliness. It took me a while to get rid of Mudclaw. If you knew you were on our territory, you'd be crow food, and you know it. He patted up to Fireheart. I'm sticking my neck out for you, he growled. I hope it's worth it. It is, I promise. I've come to tell you something. I've got to speak to Tallstar. It's important, he added, as One Whisker went on staring at him. For a few heartbeats, he was afraid that his friend was going to refuse, or even attack him and drive him off WindClan territory. Then One Whisker spoke, and to Fireheart's relief he sounded less hostile, as if he were beginning to realize the urgency of Fireheart's request. What's it all about? Tallstar will have my fur off if I take a ThunderClan cat into camp without a very good reason. I can't tell you, One Whisker. I can't tell any cat except Tallstar. But believe me, it's for the good of both our clans. Once again, One Whisker hesitated. I wouldn't do this for any cat but you, Fireheart, he meowed at last. Spinning around, he beckoned with his tail and bounded off across the moor. That was a little gay, One Whisker. Fireheart sprang after him. One Whisker halted at the top of the slope, looking down into the WindClan camp. The rays of the dying sun cast long shadows over the gorse bushes that lined the sides of the hollow. As Fireheart and One Whisker stood there, a patrol slipped past them. Fireheart was conscious of their stares, where curiosity mingled with antagonism. Come on, meowed One Whisker. He led the way through the tough stems of gorse until they came to a sandy clearing in the middle of the bushes. As he emerged through a narrow gap in the thorns, Fireheart saw Tallstar crouched at one side of the clearing near a pile of freshkill. More WindClan warriors clustered around him. It was the clan deputy, Deadfoot, who looked up first and then nudged his leader, mewing something rapidly into his ear. Tallstar rose and padded across the clearing to where Fireheart and One Whisker waited. Deadfoot hovered at his shoulder, and other cats followed close behind. Fireheart recognized Barkface, the WindClan medicine cat, and Mudclaw, his lips drawn back in a snarl. Well, One Whisker. Tallstar's voice was level, giving nothing away. Why have you brought Fireheart here? One Whisker dipped his head. He says he has to talk to you. And that means he can just stroll into our camp? Mudclaw spat. He's from an enemy clan. Tallstar waved his tail at Mudclaw, a sign for silence, while his eyes looked deep into Fireheart's. I'm here, he mewed simply. Talk. Fireheart glanced around him. The crowd was growing larger, as more WindClan cats heard about the intruder in their midst and came out to see what was going on. What I have to say is not for all ears, Tallstar, he stammered. For a heartbeat, he thought he heard a faint growl in Tallstar's throat, but then the WindClan leader nodded slowly. Very well. We will go to my den. Deadfoot, you come with us. And you, One Whisker. Turning, he stalked toward the rock at the far end of the clearing, his long tail held high, while the 2 warriors herded Fireheart after him. The WindClan leader's den was sheltered under a deep overhang in the rock, on the side away from the main camp. Tallstar entered and made himself comfortable in a nest of heather, facing Fireheart. Well, he meowed. Shadows were gathering in the den, and Fireheart could feel rather than see the shapes of the cats who guarded him. Tension crackled between them, as if they were waiting for the tiniest excuse to attack him. During his journey across the moor, he had thought hard about what he would say, but he still didn't know whether he would manage to convince Tallstar that there was a way to avoid Bluestar's attack. "You know that Bluestar is unhappy about the loss of prey," Fireheart began. Instantly, the fur on the WindClan leader's shoulders began to bristle. "WindClan did not steal prey from ThunderClan," he snapped. "We found scattered remains, too," Deadfoot asserted, limping forward and thrusting his muzzle close to Fireheart's. "Are you sure ThunderClan haven't been stealing prey from us?" Fireheart forced himself not to flinch. "No," he protested. "I don't believe any cats have stolen prey." "What happened to it, then?" One Whisker asked. "I think there's a dog living in the forest. We've smelled it and found its dung." "A dog?" One Whisker echoed. His eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "What, loose from its 2 legs? I'm certain of it," Fireheart meowed. "Could be," mewed Tallstar. To Fireheart's relief, the fur on his shoulders was lying flat again. "We've certainly sent a dog in our territory recently, but then they're always up here with their 2 legs. Sounding more confident, he went on. "Yes, it could be a dog killing the rabbits. I'll see that our patrols keep a lookout. But you didn't come all this way to tell us that," Deadfoot meowed. "So what's on your mind, Fireheart?" Fireheart took a deep breath. He didn't want to betray Bluestar by telling Tallstar of her plans to attack, but he wanted to suggest to the WindClan leader that future battle could be avoided if he would just talk to Bluestar about the prey theft. "I can't convince Bluestar about the dog," he explained. "She feels threatened by WindClan, and sooner or later this will all end in battle unless we can do something." He could not tell the WindClan warriors how much sooner the battle would take place if he failed now. "Cats will be injured, killed even, for nothing." "Then what do you expect me to do?" Tallstar asked testily. "She's your leader, Fireheart. This is your problem." Fireheart dared to take a couple of steps toward the WindClan leader. "I've come to ask you to hold a meeting with Bluestar. If you could discuss things in private, you might be able to make peace." "Bluestar wants a meeting." It was Deadfoot who spoke, sounding disbelieving. "Last time we saw her, she looked as if she would like to claw our throats out." "This isn't Bluestar's idea. It's mine," Fireheart confessed. All 3 WindClan cats stared at him. Finally, it was One Whisker who broke the silence. "Does that mean you're going behind your leader's back? It's for the good of both our clans," he insisted. He half expected to be chased out of the camp, but to his relief, Tallstar was looking thoughtful. "I'd certainly rather talk than fight," the leader meowed. "But how are we going to arrange it? How willing to listen will she be if she knows that you have talked to us first, without her knowledge?" Not waiting for Fireheart to reply, he went on. "Perhaps it would be best if I sent a messenger to ask her to meet me at Four Trees. But can you guarantee the safety of a WindClan cat on ThunderClan territory?" Fireheart was silent, which was answer in itself. Tallstar shrugged. "I'm sorry, Fireheart. I won't risk one of my warriors. If Bluestar decides that she's willing to talk, she knows where to find us. One Whisker, you'd better take Fireheart back to Four Trees." "Wait!" Fireheart protested. An idea had just slid into his mind, or perhaps StarClan had sent it to him. "I know what you can do." Tallstar's eyes gleamed in the gathering darkness. "What?" "Do you know the cat Ravenpaw? He's a loner who lives on a farm at the edge of your territory near Highstones. He sheltered us on the journey to bring you home. Remember?" "I know him," meowed One Whisker. "He's a decent cat, even if he's not a warrior. What about him?" Fireheart turned to him eagerly. "He could take the message for you. And Bluestar has given him permission to enter ThunderClan territory, as he used to be a ThunderClan cat." Tallstar shifted in his nest of heather. "That sounds like it might work. What do you think, Deadfoot?" A reluctant rumble of agreement came from the deputy. "Then go!" Fireheart urged One Whisker, realizing once again how quickly time was running out. "Go now. Tell him to ask Bluestar to meet Tallstar at dawn, at Four Trees." There was barely enough time for One Whisker to find Ravenpaw, and for Ravenpaw to carry the message all the way to the ThunderClan camp, before Bluestar would be leaving to launch her attack. Fireheart sent a silent prayer to StarClan that One Whisker would be able to find Ravenpaw easily on the 2-leg farm. One Whisker glanced at his leader, who nodded. At once the brown tabby warrior turned around and disappeared into the darkness outside the den. Tallstar gazed at Fireheart with narrowed eyes. "Why do I think there's something you're not telling me?" he mewed. To Fireheart's relief, he did not press for more answers. "It's time for you to go," he continued. "Deadfoot, escort him off our territory. And Fireheart, I'll be at Four Trees at dawn, but that's all I can do. If Bluestar wants peace, she must be there. Four Trees at dawn," Fireheart repeated, and followed the deputy out. So Fireheart makes it to Four Trees in good time. Back on his territory, he stops to hunt. He hasn't eaten since the previous night. He catches a vole and rapidly eats it, returning to the ravine outside camp as the moon rises, remembering he still has to choose warriors for the midnight attack on WindClan. Suddenly, he hears Whitestorm call his name, who appears with the evening patrol. Brightpaw, Cloudpaw, and Frostfur. Quote, "Everything quiet?" Fireheart asked as Whitestorm came up to him. "Quiet as a sleeping kit," the white warrior replied. "No sign of the dog. Maybe its 2 legs found it after all." "Maybe," Fireheart meowed. Suddenly, he decided to tell Whitestorm where he had been. He wanted at least one other warrior to share the hope that they might have to go into battle against WindClan. "Actually, Whitestorm, I wanted a word with you about that. Can you give me a moment?" "Of course, if you don't mind my eating while I listen."
Whitestorm sent the two apprentices to go take prey for themselves. They bounded over to the pile of fresh kill and fell into a friendly scuffle over a magpie. Frostfur padded off to the warrior's den with a vole, while Whitestorm chose a squirrel for himself and carried it over to a quiet corner by the newly sprouting nettle patch. Fireheart followed him. "Whitestorm, Bluestar sent for me this morning." Quietly, he told the other warrior the whole story, from Bluestar's obsessive belief that WindClan had been stealing prey and her order to attack, to Fireheart's decision to ask WindClan for a meeting. "What?" Whitestorm stared at Fireheart in disbelief. "You went behind Bluestar's back?" His voice failed, and he shook his head in confusion. "Bro, that's what you're worried about right now?" Fireheart immediately felt defensive. "What else could I do? You could have consulted me." The fur on Whitestorm's shoulders bristled angrily. "Or some of the other senior warriors. We would have helped you find a solution." "I'm sorry." Fireheart's heart was pounding. "I didn't want anyone else to get in trouble. I did what I thought was best." It was because of the warrior code that he had acted alone, knowing that he could not ask any other cat to challenge Bluestar's orders like this. Whitestorm's gaze was intensely thoughtful. "I think we need to tell the other warriors about this," he meowed at last. "They'll need to be ready for Bluestar's attack in case Ravenpaw doesn't get here. And even if Bluestar agrees to meet Tallstar, she might want a patrol behind her. I'd bet a moon's worth of dawn patrols that Tallstar guesses something's up. We can't be sure he won't ambush us." Fireheart nodded respectfully. "You're right, Whitestorm. I trust them, but we should be prepared. I'll find some apprentices to guard the camp," Whitestorm meowed. "You gather the warriors." Fireheart ran across the clearing to the warriors' den. Most of them were already there, curled up in their nests, asleep. Fireheart prodded Sandstorm with a paw to rouse her. She blinked up at him. "What is it?" "Wake the others, please, Sandstorm," Fireheart meowed. "Whitestorm and I have something important to tell everyone." Sandstorm scrambled to her paws. "What do you mean, something important? It's the middle of the night." Fireheart went out again without answering, to look for the remaining warriors. He found Brindleface visiting the queens in the nursery, and Mousefur coming into camp with her jaws full of fresh kill after a late-night patrol. He wondered whether he ought to call Cinderpelt, but decided it would be better to explain the situation to her individually. Yeah, because she's your situationship, right. By the time he returned to the warrior's den, the other cats were fully awake. A moment later, Whitestorm padded under the shelter of the branches and sat down at Fireheart's side. "What's all this about?" Darkstripe asked bad-temperedly, flicking moss off one ear. "It had better be good." Fireheart felt his stomach churn with nervousness as he wondered how his clanmates would react when they heard what he had done. Whitestorm nodded at him, nudging him to speak. Taking a deep breath, Fireheart began. He explained Bluestar's plan to attack, and how he had tried to work out a peaceful solution instead. His clanmates listened in stunned silence. Fireheart was acutely conscious of their eyes fixed on him, glowing in the moonlight that filtered through the gaps in the den's roof. In particular, he was aware of Sandstorm's pale green gaze, where she sat crouched near the outer branches, but he could not bring himself to look directly at her. He just hoped that the warriors would understand he had done this for the best of reasons, to avoid battle and save lives. "So Tallstar agreed to meet Bluestar at Four Trees," he finished. "Ravenpaw should be here any time now to tell her about the meeting." He braced himself for an outburst from the other warriors, but no cat seemed to know what to say. They merely looked at each other in bewilderment. Eventually, Mousefur asked, "Whitestorm, do you agree with what Fireheart has done?" Fireheart waited, his eyes fixed on his paws. He desperately needed Whitestorm's support because of the respect he commanded from the other warriors, but he knew that Whitestorm did not completely approve of his actions, however well-intentioned. "I wouldn't have done it," Whitestorm spoke with his usual quiet authority. "But I think he's right about not attacking WindClan. I don't believe they've taken any of our prey. There is a dog loose. I've scented it myself." "So have I around Snake Rocks," confirmed Mousefur. "At Four Trees, too," meowed Brackenfur. "We can't blame WindClan for that." "But you're asking us to keep secrets from Bluestar." Sandstorm rose to her paws, and at last Fireheart had to meet her challenging green stare. A jolt of dismay ran through Fireheart. He had not expected Sandstorm to be the first cat to object to what he had done. "I'm sorry," he mewed. "I didn't think I had a choice." "Just what I would expect from a kitty pet," growled Darkstripe. "Do you have any idea of what the warrior code means?" "I know very well what it means," Fireheart defended himself. "It is because of my loyalty to the clan that I don't want to fight an unnecessary battle, and I respect StarClan as much as any cat. I don't believe it's their will that we attack tonight." Darkstripe twitched his ear scornfully, but he said no more. Fireheart glanced around, wondering whether he was winning the support of his warriors. When Bluestar gave up her last life and went to join StarClan, he realized uncomfortably. He might have to lead this clan, and if he could not command their loyalty and respect, the task would be impossible. "This is what's important," he went on desperately. "WindClan haven't done anything wrong, and we have enough to do, rebuilding the camp and keeping up the patrols without fighting an unnecessary, dangerous battle. But how will we keep ourselves fed and prepare for Leafbear if we have warriors injured or even killed?" "He's right," Brindleface spoke up, and the others turned to look at her. "Our children would be in the battle," she went on quietly. "We don't want them hurt for nothing." Frostfur added her agreement, but the rest of the warriors were still murmuring among themselves. Again he was aware of Sandstorm and the distress in her pale green eyes.
He could understand how torn she must feel now, between her loyalty to Bluestar and her commitment to him. Right now, Fireheart wanted nothing more than to press himself against her flank and forget all this in the sweet scent of her fur. But he had to go on standing in front of his warriors, waiting for their verdict on whether they would support him or not. "She's mad at you and you're still down bad for her, bro?" "So what do you want us to do?" Longtail meowed at last. "I'll need a party of warriors ready to go with Bluestar to Four Trees," Fireheart replied. "If Ravenpaw doesn't come, or if Bluestar doesn't agree to talk, then she'll lead us into battle. And if that happens..." His voice failed. He swallowed. "Yes, what then?" Sandstorm demanded. "Do you want us to disobey Bluestar's direct orders? Turn around and run away? Dustpelt, tell Fireheart what a mouse-brained idea that is." "Dustpelt? Nah, that's low, even for her." Dustpelt's ears pricked in surprise. Fireheart knew very well that part of the Brown Warrior's antagonism toward him was because Sandstorm so clearly preferred Fireheart now. He braced himself for more criticism, but Dustpelt meowed hesitantly. "I don't know, Sandstorm. Fireheart's right that it's a bad time for a battle, and besides, no cat can seriously believe that WindClan is stealing our prey. If Bluestar thinks so, then... well..." He broke off, scuffling his paws in confusion. "It's understandable that Bluestar can't trust WindClan," Fireheart mewed, instinctively defending his leader. "Not since they stopped her going to Highstones. And we've never known dogs loose in the forest before. But there was no evidence at all that WindClan took those rabbits, and plenty of evidence that a dog did. So what do you suggest if it comes to battle, Fireheart?" asked Mousefur. "Come back to the camp when Bluestar gives the order to attack?" "No," Fireheart replied. "Tallstar seemed willing to meet Bluestar in peace, and if we're lucky, he'll only have 1 or 2 warriors with him. It won't come to a fight." "That's a pretty big if," mewed Mousefur with a skeptical flick of her tail. "What if WindClan assumed the same thing and set an ambush for us? We'd be crow food." Fireheart winced as she voiced Whitestorm's own doubts about whether they could trust Tallstar. "I'm not going," Longtail announced loudly. "Let WindClan tear us apart? I'm not mouse-brained." Dustpelt, who was sitting next to him, turned his head and gave him a scorching look of contempt. "No, you're a coward," he meowed. "I'm not!" Longtail's protest was shrill. "I'm a loyal ThunderClan cat." "Fine, Longtail," Fireheart broke in. "We don't need every warrior to go. You can stay and guard the camp. And that goes for the rest of you," he added. "If you don't want to be part of this, stay here." He waited tensely for his warriors' response, looking around at their troubled faces in the dim light of their den. "I'll go," meowed Whitestorm at last. "I think we can trust Tallstar not to fight, if there is an alternative." Fireheart shot him a grateful glance as the other warriors hesitated, murmuring to each other or shifting uncomfortably among the mossy bedding. "I'll go too." Brackenfur sounded nervous to be the first to speak among so many older warriors. "So will I," mewed Dustpelt. His tail lashed once in Fireheart's direction. "But if WindClan attack, I'll fight. I'm not going to be clawed apart for any cat." The rest of the warriors joined in. To Fireheart's surprise, Darkstripe agreed to go, while Mousefur refused. "I'm sorry, Fireheart," she meowed. "I think you're talking sense, but that's not the point. The warrior code isn't something you stick to just when you feel like it. I don't think I could disobey my leader if she ordered me to attack." "Well, I will go," Brindleface asserted. "I don't want to see my kits torn to pieces in a battle we don't have to fight." "I'll go too," meowed Frostfur. Her gaze swept around the warriors around her as she added, "We don't raise kits to fight in unjust battles." At last Fireheart had to face Sandstorm, who so far had said nothing. He could not imagine what he would do if she refused to support him. "Sandstorm?" he mewed hesitantly. Sandstorm crouched with her head down, not meeting his eyes. "I'll go along with you, Fireheart," she muttered. "I know you're right about the dogs, but I still hate lying to Bluestar." Fireheart moved to her side and gave her ear a quick lick, wanting to thank her, but she jerked her head away without looking at him. "She is so bipolar, bro." "What about the apprentices?" Darkstripe asked. "Do you want them to come with us?" "Fernpaw's too young to get involved." "I agree," Dustpelt mewed swiftly. For all his tension, Fireheart had to suppress a purr of amusement to hear Dustpelt betraying the soft spot he felt for Darkstripe's apprentice. "I'd prefer to keep Brightpaw out of it," meowed Whitestorm. "But won't Bluestar think there's something odd if we don't take any apprentices with us?" asked Brackenfur. "That's a good point." Fireheart nodded at the young warrior. "Okay, we'll take Swiftpaw and Cloudpaw. But only if Bluestar wants to take that many cats with her, and we'll tell them what's going on after we leave. The news will be all around the camp otherwise." Fireheart realized to his surprise that he had more warriors on his side than he needed. If Ravenpaw made it to the camp on time and Bluestar agreed to go and talk to Tallstar, it would seem odd if a whole fighting patrol of warriors offered to go with her. Besides, he didn't want to leave the camp vulnerable to attack, especially now. "Why don't Frostfur and Brackenfur stay to help guard the camp?" he suggested. "I am grateful for your support, but you may be needed here." Brackenfur and Frostfur exchanged a glance and then nodded. "Now the rest of you better get some sleep," he continued. "We leave at moonset." So Fireheart watches the warriors settle down in their nests, but his next step is to visit Cinderpelt. He is wary of how much can go wrong with this plan. He enters the clearing, looking out for Ravenpaw but not spotting him. He tells Ashpaw, who is on guard, to look out for Ravenpaw and to lead him straight to Bluestar if he arrives. He then goes to find Cinderpelt, who is sitting outside her den and talking with Mousefur. Quote, Fireheart? Cinderpelt meowed, rising slowly to her paws. What's all this Mouse Fur is telling me? Why wasn't I invited to the meeting? Her blue eyes blazed with annoyance. It was just for the warriors, Fireheart replied, though the explanation sounded feeble even to him. Oh, right, mewed Cinderpelt dryly. You thought I wouldn't be interested in keeping secrets from Bluestar? It's not like that, Fireheart protested. I was coming to tell you now. Mousefur, he added, giving the she-cat a hostile glance. Aren't you supposed to be resting? Mousefur returned his glare, then spun around and vanished into the darkness. Well, prompted Cinderpelt. It sounds as if Mousefur has told you already. I don't like this situation any more than you, but what choice is there? Do you really think that StarClan want war in the forest? Especially an unjust war? StarClan have shown me nothing about any battles, Cinderpelt admitted. And I don't want bloodshed, but is this the only way to stop it? If you can think of a better idea, tell me. Cinderpelt shook her head. Moonlight shone on her gray fur, giving her a ghostly appearance, as if she were already halfway into the world of StarClan. Whatever you do, Fireheart, be careful of Bluestar. Be gentle with her. She was a great leader, and she might be again. Fireheart wanted so much to believe the medicine cat. But each day, Bluestar seemed to slide further into confusion. The wise mentor he had respected when he first came to ThunderClan seemed very far away. I'll do my best, he promised. I don't want to deceive her. But that's why I've organized this meeting with Tallstar. I want her to realize we don't have to fight. And she won't listen to me. Tensely, he added. Do you think I'm wrong? It's not for me to say. Cinderpelt met his gaze steadily. This is your decision, Fireheart. No cat can make it for you. And that's the end of chapter 13. Chapter 14, quote, When Fireheart returned to the clearing, there was still no sign of Ravenpaw. His belly churned. The moon was high in the sky. Before long, Bluestar would lead her warriors into battle against WindClan, and all hope of a peaceful solution would be lost. Where was Ravenpaw? Perhaps One Whisker hadn't been able to find him. Or perhaps he couldn't come. Or he was on his way but would arrive too late. Fireheart wanted to dash out into the forest and look for him, but he knew that would serve no purpose. Then he saw a flicker of movement at the entrance to the camp, and heard a mewed challenge from Ashpaw. Another cat answered, and Fireheart shivered with relief as he recognized Ravenpaw's voice. Springing forward, he bounded across the clearing. Okay, Ashpaw, he meowed to the apprentice. I'll look after Ravenpaw. You stay on guard. He touched noses with the sleek cat who emerged from the gorse tunnel. It's good to see you, Ravenpaw. How are you? Even as he asked the question, he could see that the former apprentice was looking well. His black pelt shone in the moonlight, and his strong muscles rippled beneath the fur. I'm fine, Ravenpaw replied. He looked around the clearing, his amber eyes very wide. It seems strange to be here again, Fireheart. I'm sorry to hear you're having trouble with WindClan. One Whisker told me everything, and he swore that they haven't been stealing prey. Try convincing Bluestar of that, Fireheart meowed grimly. Look, I hate to rush you. I know you must have run like the wind to get here so fast. But we don't have much time. Follow me. He led the way to Bluestar's den. The ThunderClan leader was curled in her nest, but when Fireheart looked closely at her, he could see a gleam of moonlight reflected from her narrowed eyes. She was not asleep. What's the matter, Fireheart? She asked, sounding annoyed. It's not time to go yet. And who's that with you? It's Ravenpaw, Bluestar, the loner meowed, stepping forward. I've come with a message from WindClan. WindClan! Bluestar sprang to her paws. What does that clan of thieves want to say to me? To Ravenpaw's credit, he didn't flinch, though Fireheart knew he must remember the days when he was a clan apprentice, and Bluestar's anger was something to be feared. Tallstar wants to meet with you to discuss the loss of prey, he told her. Does he? Briefly, Bluestar glared at her deputy, her eyes blazing with blue fire. For a heartbeat, Fireheart was sure she had guessed what he had done. There was an ominous pause. Bluestar, surely it would be better to talk than fight, he ventured. Don't tell me what to do, Bluestar snapped. Her tail tip twitched irritably. Get out of here. Ravenpaw and I will discuss this together. Fireheart had no choice but to leave the den. He hovered around outside, listening to the murmur of voices, but unable to make out what Bluestar and Ravenpaw were saying. After a while, Whitestorm emerged from the warrior's den, and padded over to join him. The moon's going down, the white warrior meowed. Bluestar will want to leave soon. Is Ravenpaw here yet? Yes, he is, mewed Fireheart. But I don't know whether... He broke off at a movement from inside the den. A heartbeat later, Bluestar stalked out with Ravenpaw behind her. She paced forward until she reached Fireheart, her tail lashing. Gather a patrol, she ordered. We go to Four Trees. Does that mean you are going to talk with Tallstar? Fireheart asked bravely. His leader's tail lashed again. I will talk, she meowed. But if there is no agreement, then we will fight. So it's still dark when Bluestar leads her patrol into Four Trees. You can hear a pin drop. Fireheart barely had time to thank Ravenpaw before he left, and he took a route back home away from Four Trees, to avoid whatever is about to happen. As they approach the hollow and look toward the WindClan border, they see a line of cats behind Tallstar. Fireheart's stomach clenched as he realized Tallstar came prepared. Quote, What's that? Bluestar hissed, turning to glare into his eyes. So many WindClan cats? I thought I was coming here to talk. Her eyes glared furiously at Fireheart, some sharpened instinct flooding her expression with understanding. This looks more like an ambush than a meeting of leaders.
At a flick of her tail, the ThunderClan warriors moved up in purposeful silence to form a tight line on either side of their leader, facing the WindClan cats. Fireheart felt the air crackle with tension, and he realized that it would be all too easy for fighting to break out, even if WindClan did not attack first. Would Tallstar keep his word and try to talk to Bluestar rather than fight? "Tallstar," Bluestar meowed coldly. "What have you to say to me?" Waiting for the WindClan leader's response, Fireheart nervously sheathed and unsheathed his claws. He did not know if the line would hold. If just one cat moved forward, battle could engulf them all. He saw Dustbelt exchange a tense glance with Brindleface, as if both cats were thinking the same as he was. Next to him, Sandstorm kept her gaze fixed on the WindClan cats, her ears flat to her head. Swiftpaw stared nervously at his leader, but he held his place in the line. Cloudpaw, on Fireheart's other side, had dropped into the hunter's crouch, his rump wriggling as if he were about to spring. "Keep still," Fireheart hissed. A few fox lengths away, Tallstar stood a pace or two ahead of his own warriors. As the first pale light of dawn crept into the sky, Fireheart could make him out more clearly. His black and white fur was fluffed up, and his tail held erect. Behind him, Fireheart spotted One Whisker and Morning Flower and the young apprentice Gorespaw. "I don't want to fight these cats," he thought. He waited, feeling his heart pound like that of a trapped bird. "No cat is to move," Tallstar ordered his warriors at last, his voice carrying easily in the still air. "You must be mad!" That was Mudclaw, patting to Tallstar's side. "That's a fighting force she's brought with her. We've got to attack." "No." Tallstar took another pace forward, flicking his tail to summon Deadfoot, his deputy, to his side. Looking directly at Bluestar, he tipped his head. "No battle will be fought here today. I said that I would come here to talk, and that's what I intend to do." Bluestar did not respond. She crouched on the ground, her fur bristling and her teeth bared in a snarl of defiance. Fireheart was suddenly afraid that she had changed her mind, and wondered what would happen if she launched herself at the WindClan leader. He sent up a fervent prayer to StarClan that she would not order her warriors to attack. Meanwhile, One Whisker came up to Mudclaw and nudged him roughly back into line. For a moment that seemed to Fireheart to last several moons, the two lines of cats faced each other, their fur blowing in the wind, their eyes gleaming with a tension that teetered on the brink of breaking out into squalling, biting rage. "Bluestar," Tallstar spoke again. "Will you come here to me, between our warriors? Bring your deputy with you, and let us see if we can make peace." "Peace?" Bluestar spat. "How can I make peace with prey stealers and rogues?" Yowls of protest rose from the WindClan cats. Mudclaw sprang forward, but One Whisker leaped after him and bowled him over, holding him writhing on the turf. Fireheart saw Darkstripe lashing his tail to and fro. If Mudclaw attacked, Darkstripe would meet him, and all hope of peace would be over. "Do as Tallstar says," Fireheart mewed desperately to Bluestar. "That's why we're here. WindClan have suffered from stolen prey, just like ThunderClan." Bluestar rounded on him, a look of venomous hatred blazing in her blue eyes. "It seems we have no choice," she hissed at him. "But there'll be a reckoning for this, Fireheart. You can be sure of that." Oh, yeah, she definitely knows what he did. Stiff-legged, her fur bristling, she paced forward until she stood in front of Tallstar, right on the border of WindClan territory. Fireheart followed, murmuring to Sandstorm, "Keep an eye on Darkstripe," as he left the line of warriors. Tallstar watched Bluestar coolly as she approached. The WindClan leader had never forgiven her, Fireheart knew, for sheltering his old enemy Broken Tail, but he had the wisdom not to let his grudge influence him now. "Bluestar," he meowed. "I swear by StarClan that WindClan have not hunted on your territory." "StarClan," Bluestar sneered. "What's the worth of an oath by StarClan?" The black and white Tom looked taken aback, his gaze flickering to Fireheart as if he were looking for an explanation. "Then I will swear it by anything you hold sacred," he went on. "By our kits, by our hopes for our clans, by our honor as leaders. WindClan did not do what you accuse us of." For the first time, his words seemed to reach Bluestar. Fireheart saw her fur begin to lie flat. "How can I believe you?" she rasped. "We have lost prey too," Tallstar told her. "It may be dogs or rogues. It is not cats from WindClan." "So you say," meowed Bluestar. She sounded uncertain now. Fireheart thought that perhaps Tallstar was beginning to convince her, but she did not know how to back down without losing dignity. "Bluestar," Fireheart mewed urgently. "A noble leader doesn't take her warriors into battle without need. If there's the least doubt that—" "Do you think you know more than I do about how to lead a clan?" Bluestar interrupted. Her fur had bristled again, but this time it was Fireheart who was the target of her anger. He caught a glimpse of the old, formidable ThunderClan leader, and it was all he could do not to flinch from her. "Young cats think they know everything," Tallstar meowed. There was a hint of sympathetic humor in his voice, and Fireheart felt a flash of gratitude toward the WindClan leader for his sensitivity to Bluestar's fears. "But sometimes we have to listen to them. There is no need for this battle." Very smart move by Tallstar. Bluestar's ears twitched irritably. "Very well," she mewed reluctantly. "I accept your word, for now. But if my patrol sent WindClan one tail length over our border—" She whipped around and called to the ThunderClan cats. "Back to camp," she ordered, leaping ahead of them. As Fireheart turned to follow her, Tallstar dipped his head to him. "Thank you, Fireheart. You did well, and my clan honors your courage in averting this battle. But I don't envy you now." Fireheart shrugged and followed the rest of his clan.
Just before he plunged into the hollow at Four Trees, he glanced over his shoulder to see the WindClan cats racing back across the open moor toward their camp. The turf gleamed pale in the soft dawn light, unstained by the blood of any cat. "Thank you, Spotted Leaf," Fireheart murmured as he turned away. Yeah, thank God they didn't fight. That was a scary moment. Bluestar led her warriors back to camp in tense silence. At the entrance to the clearing, Fireheart bounded ahead to talk to Mousefur, who was sitting outside the warriors' den. "Any problems?" he asked. Mousefur shook her head. "No trouble at all," she reported. "Frostfur has taken out the dawn patrol with Brackenfur and a couple of the apprentices." Looking him over, she added, "You don't seem to be missing any fur. I suppose the peace talk worked." "Yes, it did. Thanks for taking care of the things here, Mousefur." Mousefur dipped her head. "I'm going to get some sleep," she meowed. "You'll need to send some cats out to hunt. There's hardly any fresh kill left." "I'll lead a hunting party," Fireheart promised. "No, you won't." Bluestar came padding up behind him. Her eyes were chips of blue ice. "I want to see you in my den, Fireheart." "Now?" She stalked across the clearing without looking back to see if he was following. Fireheart's fur prickled with dread. He had expected some sort of recrimination from his leader, but that didn't make it any easier now that it was about to happen. "I'll see to the hunting party," Whitestorm meowed, giving him a sympathetic look as he came up with Sandstorm and Dustpelt. Fireheart nodded his thanks and headed toward Bluestar's den. By the time he reached it, his leader was seated on her bedding with her paws tucked under her. The tip of her tail twitched back and forth. "Fireheart." Her voice was quiet. Fireheart would have been less afraid if she had yelled at him. "Tallstar couldn't have picked a more convenient time to talk to me about the prey theft than if StarClan had told him themselves. That was your doing, wasn't it? You're the only cat who knew that I was planning to attack WindClan. Only you could have betrayed us." Of course, this is the one time she uses her brain. She sounded as if her mind was clearer than it had been for some time, as if the instinct that had sharpened her senses on the moor had settled into hard certainty. She was behaving like the noble leader he had once respected, giving Fireheart an even more agonizing sense of what they had lost. He still believed that he had not betrayed his clan, but he had given away the advantage of surprise, because Tallstar had been wise enough to realize that battle must be close. Would Bluestar send him into exile? Fireheart shivered at the thought of being forced to live as a rogue, stealing prey and with no clan to call his own. He came to stand in front of Bluestar and dipped his head. "I thought it was the right thing to do," he meowed quietly. "Neither of the clans needed to fight this battle." "I trusted you, Fireheart," Bluestar rasped. "You, out of all my warriors." Fireheart forced himself to meet her flinty gaze. "I did it for the good of the clan, Bluestar. And I didn't tell him about the attack. I only asked him to try making peace. I thought—" "Silence!" Bluestar hissed, lashing her tail. "That is no excuse. And why should I care if the whole clan had been slaughtered? Why should I care what happens to traitors?" A wild light was growing in her eyes again, and Fireheart realized that the moment's clarity had gone. "If only I'd kept my kits," she whispered. "Mistyfoot and Stonefur are noble cats. Far nobler than any of this ragtag bunch in ThunderClan. My children would never have betrayed me." "Bluestar," Fireheart tried to interrupt, but she ignored him. "I gave them up to become deputy, and now StarClan are punishing me." "Oh, StarClan are clever, Fireheart. They knew the cruelest way to break me. They made me leader and then let my cats betray me. What is it worth now to be leader of ThunderClan? Nothing! It's all empty, all—" Her paws worked furiously among the moss. Her eyes were glazed, staring at nothing, and her mouth gaped in a soundless wail. Fireheart shuddered in dismay. "I'll fetch Cinderpelt," he meowed. "Stay where you are." Each word was rasped out separately. "I need to punish you, Fireheart. Tell me a good punishment for a traitor." Exile?" Nearly sick with fear and shock, Fireheart forced himself to reply. "I don't know, Bluestar. But I do." Now her voice was a low purr, with a strange note of amusement in it. Her gaze locked with Fireheart's. "I know the best punishment of all. I'll do nothing. I'll let you be deputy still, and leader after me." "Oh, that should please StarClan. A traitor leading a clan of traitors. May they give you joy of it, Fireheart. Now get out of my sight!" The last words were spat out. Fireheart backed away from her into the clearing. He felt as if he had been in a battle after all. Bluestar's despair pierced him like sharpened claws. But he couldn't help feeling that Bluestar had let him down too, by not even trying to understand his motives. She had labeled him a traitor without even considering what would happen if they had fought WindClan. Head down, Fireheart padded across the clearing, not even aware that another cat had approached him until he heard Sandstorm's voice. "What happened, Fireheart? Has she sent you away?" Fireheart looked up. Sandstorm's green eyes were anxious, though she did not move close enough to comfort him with her touch. "No," he replied. "She didn't do anything." "Then that's all right." Sandstorm sounded as if she were forcing optimism into her voice. "Why are you looking like that?" "She's ill." Fireheart couldn't begin to describe what he had just witnessed in Bluestar's den. "I'm going to get Cinderpelt to see her. Then maybe we can eat together." "No, I said I'd go hunting with Cloudpaw and Brindleface." Sandstorm scuffled her front paws, not looking at him. Don't worry about Bluestar, Fireheart. She'll be alright. I don't know. Fireheart couldn't repress a shiver. I thought I could make her understand, but she thinks I betrayed her. Sandstorm said nothing. Fireheart saw her give him a quick glance and then look away. There was longing in her eyes, but it was mingled with uneasiness, and he remembered how she had resented deceiving Bluestar. Does Sandstorm think I'm a traitor too? He thought desperately. After Fireheart had sent Cinderpelt to Bluestar, he headed for the warrior's den. He felt as if his legs could hardly hold him up, and he could think of nothing except sinking into the soft darkness of sleep. His heart sank when he saw Longtail stalking across the clearing toward him. I want a word with you, Fireheart, he growled. Fireheart sat down. What is it? You ordered my apprentice to go with you this morning. Yes, and I told you why. He didn't like it, but he did his duty, Longtail meowed harshly. That was true, Fireheart reflected. He had admired the apprentice's courage in a tough situation, but he wasn't sure why Longtail was making such a fuss now. I think it's time he was made a warrior, Longtail went on. In fact, Fireheart, he should have been a warrior long ago. He's really worrying about this right now? Yes, I know, Fireheart replied. You're right, Longtail, he should. Longtail looked taken aback at his ready agreement. So what are you going to do about it? He blustered. Right now, nothing, Fireheart meowed. Don't flatten your ears at me, Longtail. Just think, will you? Bluestar is distressed at the moment. She didn't like what happened this morning, and she won't want to think about promoting apprentices. No, wait. He flicked his tail to silence Longtail as the pale warrior opened his mouth to protest. Leave it with me. Sooner or later, Bluestar has to realize that what happened was for the best. Then I'll talk to her about making Swiftpaw a warrior, I promise. Longtail sniffed. Fireheart could see he wasn't happy, but he couldn't think of any reason to object. All right, the pale tabby warrior mewed. But it had better be soon. He stalked off again, leaving Fireheart to head for his nest. As he curled into the soft moss, shutting his eyes tight against the early morning light, he couldn't help worrying about the 4 older apprentices. Cloudpaw, Brightpaw, and Thornpaw all deserved to be warriors as well as Swiftpaw, and the clan desperately needed them to take on full warrior duties. But in her present mood, convinced that she was surrounded by traitors, Bluestar would never agree to give them warrior status. Fireheart's dreams were dark and confused, and he woke up to find that a cat was nudging him. A voice meowed, "Wake up, Fireheart!" Blinking, he focused his eyes on Cinderpelt's face. Her gray fur was ruffled and her eyes wide with anxiety. Fireheart was awake in a heartbeat. What's the matter? It's Bluestar, Cinderpelt replied. I can't find her anywhere. That's the end of chapter 14. Oh dear, what is she up to now? This should be good. Chapter 15. Fireheart sprang to his paws. Tell me what happened. When I saw her earlier this morning, I took her poppy seeds to calm her down, Cinderpelt explained. But when I went to her den just now, she wasn't there, and she hadn't eaten the poppy seeds. I tried the elder's den in the nursery, but she isn't there either. She isn't anywhere in camp, Fireheart. Did anyone see her leave? I haven't asked yet. I came to tell you first. Then I'll get the apprentices to search and find out if Bluestar's not a kit, you know. The interruption came from Whitestorm, who had padded into the warrior's den in time to hear Cinderpelt's news. She might have gone on patrol. For all you know, other cats are with her. He spoke calmly as he bared his teeth in a yawn and settled into his nest. Fireheart nodded uncertainly. What Whitestorm said was sensible, but he would have liked to be sure. After the state Bluestar had been in that morning, she could be anywhere in the forest. She might even have gone to RiverClan in search of her kits. There's probably no need to worry, Fireheart reassured Cinderpelt, hoping he sounded more confident than he felt. But we'll look anyway and find out if any cat has seen her. So he leaves the den and spots Fernpaw and Ashpaw and tells them to go look for Bluestar. He suggests to Cinderpelt to ask if any cat has seen her, and he says he'll go up the ravine and see if he can pick up her scent, hoping he could track her. He doesn't have much hope, though, because clouds are now covering the sky and a thin rain was drizzling down, which would get rid of any scent. Before he leaves, he notices that Sandstorm was just returning to camp along with Cloudpaw and Brindleface. They all carry fresh kill, which they go drop on the pile. He races up to them, Cinderpelt limping behind him, and he asks Sandstorm if she's seen Bluestar. She says no. Why? And Cinderpelt says that she isn't here. Sandstorm says, "Are you surprised? After what happened this morning, she must feel like she's losing control of her clan." That was so close to the truth, the Fireheart didn't know how to answer. Yeah, and it's her own fault for going crazy. Cloudpaw says that they're going out again, and they'll keep a lookout for her. Fireheart thanks him. Cloudpaw races off. Brindleface pauses to meow. "I'm sure she'll be fine, Fireheart," as she left, but Sandstorm didn't look back. Fireheart's problems were about to overwhelm him, but then he felt Cinderpelt's breath soft against his ear. "Don't worry, Fireheart," she murmured. "Sandstorm's still your friend. You need to accept that she doesn't always see things the way you do." "You don't either," Fireheart sighed. Cinderpelt let out an affectionate purr. "I'm still your friend, too," she told him. "And I know you've done what you believe to be right. Now let's see what we can do to find Bluestar." She's so much better for him, dude. I know that's off topic and never gonna happen, but like, man. By the time the sun sets, Bluestar is still missing. Fireheart had tracked her as far as the top of the ravine, but when the rain comes down more heavily, the scent got lost. Too anxious to sleep, he puts himself on watch. The moon is setting when he spots movement by the camp entrance. The last rays of moonlight picked out a silver gray coat as Bluestar limped back into the camp.
Her fur was soaked, plastered to her body, and her head was low. She looked old, exhausted, defeated. Fireheart hurried across to her. "Bluestar, where have you been?" The clan leader raised her head and looked at him. A jolt ran through Fireheart. Her eyes, faintly glowing in the dim light, were clear and bright in spite of her exhaustion. "You sound like a queen scolding her kit," she rasped, an edge of humor in her voice. She jerked her head in the direction of her den. "Come with me." Fireheart obeyed, pausing only to snatch a wool from the pile of fresh kill. Bluestar needed to eat wherever she had been. When he reached Bluestar's den, his leader was seated in her mossy nest, washing herself with long, careful strokes. Fireheart would have liked to sit beside her and share tongues with her, but after their last encounter he did not dare. Instead, he dropped the bowl in front of her and respectfully dipped his head. "What happened, Bluestar?" he asked. Bluestar stretched her neck to sniff the bowl, half turned away from it, then began to gulp it down as if she had suddenly realized how hungry she was. She did not answer until she had finished it. "I went to speak with StarClan," she announced, flicking the last traces of wool from her whiskers. Fireheart stared. "To Highstones? On your own?" "Of course. Which of this pack of traitors could I ask to escort me?" Fireheart swallowed. Gently, he meowed. "Your clan are loyal, Bluestar. All of us." Bluestar shook her head stubbornly. "I went to Highstones, and I spoke with StarClan." "But why?" Fireheart was feeling more and more confused. "I thought you no longer wanted to share tongues with StarClan." The old cat drew herself up. "I do not. I went to challenge them. I wanted to ask how they could justify what they have done to me when I have served them all my life and tried to do their will, and to demand an explanation for the things that are happening in the forest." Fireheart gazed at her in disbelief, amazed that his leader had dared to challenge the spirits of their warrior ancestors. "I lay beside the Moonstone, and StarClan came to me," Bluestar went on. "They did not justify themselves. How could they? There was no justification for what they have done to me. But they told me something." Fireheart leaned closer. "What?" "They said that there is evil loose in the forest. They spoke of a pack. They told me that it will bring more death and destruction than the forest has ever seen before." "This has to be about the dogs." "What did they mean?" Fireheart whispered. "Surely there had been enough death and destruction already with the fire and the floods?" Bluestar lowered her head. "I don't know. But we must find out," Fireheart exclaimed, his mind whirling. "Perhaps they mean the dog, but a dog couldn't do damage on that scale. And what about Pack? Maybe they were talking about ShadowClan. You know how Tigerstar vowed to take revenge on us. Maybe he's planning an attack. Or Leopardstar," he added, still trying to cling to his hope that Tigerstar had lost interest in harming his old clan. Bluestar shrugged. "Maybe." Fireheart narrowed his eyes. He couldn't understand why she didn't want to work out the meaning of what StarClan had told her and make plans to stop the attack if it came. "We have to do something," he insisted. "We could set a watch on the borders, and we should increase the patrols." He wasn't sure how he was going to do that with so few warriors. "We need to make sure there's always a guard on the camp when—" His voice trailed off as he realized Bluestar wasn't listening. She crouched motionless, her eyes fixed on her paws. "Bluestar?" The ThunderClan leader looked up at him, her eyes bottomless pools of despair. "What is the point?" she rasped. "StarClan have decreed that death will come. A dark force walks this forest, and even StarClan themselves cannot control it. Or will not. There is nothing we can do." "Yeah, Grippy sock vacation for her." A shudder went through Fireheart. Was Bluestar right that StarClan were not powerful enough to avert the doom that was coming? For a few heartbeats, he almost shared his leader's despair. Then he raised his head. He felt as though he were clawing his way up from the depths of black water. "No," he growled. "I won't believe that. There is always something that a cat can do, as long as he has courage and loyalty." "Courage? Loyalty? In ThunderClan?" "Yes, Bluestar." Fireheart tried to put all the force of his belief into his reply. "No cat but Tigerstar has ever wanted to betray you." Bluestar held his gaze for a moment before looking away. Her tail flicked warily. "Do what you want, Fireheart. It won't make any difference." "Nothing will. Now leave me." Fireheart murmured a farewell. Backing away, he noticed the poppy seeds Cinderpelt had left earlier still lying neatly on a leaf. He nodded toward them. "Eat your poppy seeds, Bluestar," he mewed. "You need to rest. Tomorrow, everything will look better." He took the leaf between his teeth and carefully moved it into Bluestar's reach. It's kind of a bar. Bluestar gave a disdainful sniff, but as Fireheart left the den, he glanced back to see her bend over and lick up the seeds. Outside, he gave his pelt a shake, trying to get rid of the creeping horror he had felt as Bluestar revealed the message of StarClan. His paws carried him instinctively in the direction of Cinderpelt's den. He would have to tell the medicine cat that Bluestar was back, and he wanted to discuss what his leader had told him. Only then did he remember that more than a moon ago, Cinderpelt had told him of a dream in which he heard the words, "Pack, pack, and kill, kill." And that is the end of chapter 15, and that is where we are going to end for today. Fireheart, you're so close. Obviously, we as the reader know that StarClan is warning them about the dog pack. And obviously, none of the cats can know about the pack of dogs. They know there is at least one dog. but they don't know about the pack. So it's like mildly frustrating to see how close he's getting to figuring it out. Hopefully in the next few chapters he figures it out, and they're able to figure it out before something really, really bad could happen. Long episode today. Big episode. Bluestar has just completely lost it, but her little monologue that she has in chapter 14 is really iconic. I forget who made the animation, but there is an animation, a map actually, of that monologue where she's talking about ThunderClan being traitors. There is that. It's up on YouTube. You can go look at it. The voice acting is super good. The animation is super good. It's a really good monologue. And I was even thinking to myself, like, dang, like, I used to do theater. Like, that would kind of be a fire monologue. Performing Warrior Cats as my audition. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of your hair. It's been a lot of talking for me. Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure to rate me 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you watch or listen on YouTube, subscribe to the channel so you are updated when new episodes come out. New episodes every Friday, but you know that already. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you next week. May StarClan light your path.